Well, welcome to another leadership lesson. And I have my national president on, the 72nd president of the United States Junior Chamber of Commerce, Greg Thomas. And Greg, you've always owned an insurance company, but you put that on hold for a little while. You've been the president of the local Sportsman's Club for 8 years. Something I didn't know about you is you are the chairperson of the largest ice fishing contest in Minnesota. And I got to tell you, I was telling you off camera the story about me going down the road and seeing this car going through a field, and of course they were driving over ice. But you also, I think, one of the fundraisers for some of the Jaycees up there was actually putting a car on the lake and seeing at what point does it fall through the ice. That was the fundraiser for some of the Minnesota Jaycees, right?
Yes, right. Yeah. What day, hour, and minute is it going to go through the ice? I don't know that they do that much anymore. I think pollution standards have kind of crept in.
Yeah, yeah,
But
probably a lot of things we don't do now that we used to do. I'm going to get right to it, Greg. And again, you were my national president, and I really enjoyed working with you. And then when I was president, you were my chairman of the board, and very supportive in everything that we did. So I want to say thank you. But when you look back on your term as the 72nd president of the United States Jaycees, what accomplishments are you most proud of? Because I know there was a lot of things that we did. I think we bought a massive computer back in the day that filled up a whole room. And
yes, it did.
these days you could get one that goes on your desk, probably could do everything that big computer did that filled the whole room. But and then I think also in your year we probably hired the EVP,
Mhm.
although we pulled it. He started serving my year. But when you look back, whether it's a program or something like that, what is your biggest accomplishment, you think?
Oh, biggest accomplishment. First of all, I'm doing a little reminiscing here, Bill. Remember back about 6 years before my term, we allowed women into the organization.
Right, yeah.
So we were still kind of digesting through that, but our NVP team and the, all the people on board were all male. And this was a kind of a switch from what had happened 4 or 5 years before that. We had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think part of it was that we were a group of guys that all had same wants and desires. And so we formed that team. And I think one of the accomplishments I look back on isn't nuts and bolts as much as sharing with the whole country the teamwork that we had as a bunch of NVPs and EVPs all the way down the line. It was a fun year. And I regret to say a couple of our NVPs are no longer with us right now,
Yeah.
but so the sharing the team to other state organizations doesn't sound like it was a great big accomplishment, but I think it had long, or at least long-reaching effect throughout the organization.
You mentioned the influence of women. I remember the phone call I made. I said, Greg, I hope you're not offended by something I'm fixing to do, but I want to ask your wife if she'll be one of my hours of power speaker, because Betty, you might have been the national president, but she was a motivator.
Yeah, she was.
You mentioned again off camera how she's still involved in the community.
Yeah, no, she is. She's got her fingers in everything, even though she's retired from the educational process that she was involved with for many years. She's still teaching people how to live and to act. And that's her calling.
I shared the other day with somebody that I had a lot of things that I wanted to pull the trigger on, but by the time you're elected and then you go to JOTS and you get your team, and then January and you get ready, you're out of office before
Yes,
you're able to do a whole lot. Was there
that is
some
true.
things that you wanted to do, some initiatives that you wanted to pull the trigger on that you just didn't have time to get done?
I'm sure a lot of my predecessors have said, I wish we would have grown as an organization.
Yeah.
And, there's so many factors, and we went through so many committee meetings trying to figure that thing out. And I don't know that it's been figured out yet. So that'd be one of the things I wish that both from Robbie and Rusty and myself and into the years after me, that we could have grown as an organization.
Yeah, and Robbie Dawkins told me that I think it was Heather, one of the more recent national presidents, grew the organization. So
Mhm.
again, the organization is a lot smaller, but It looks like they're heading a very positive trend. Switching gears to JCI, you traveled to 6 continents training Jaycees through JCI. How did those experiences on an international level affect your view of leadership?
Yeah, here in the United States, we're no different than anybody else. We have the same wants and desires. I'd like to share a story with you.
Sure.
When I was national president, Bill Bremer and I went over to Estonia, and that was, I'm sure Robbie shared the story about, how the Berlin Wall fell and all that type of thing. Well, we got into Estonia just after the USSR had given up the Baltic states. And the JCI organization in Estonia was charged with writing the constitution of their country. And that night, after they'd scribbled a bunch of things down, we'd gone through their government center, we'd looked in a room, they said, hey, there, that behind that door, the KGB has all their files and all that. Well, we gathered that night as they were putting stuff up on an overhead projector, trying to figure out their constitution. And we had a little toast then. And I said, in our country, you people would be known as John Adams and Thomas Jefferson and Alexander Hamilton, and to some extent, Benjamin Franklin. And you are charged as an organization to do this. And their eyes just got big and wide, and they realized what they had. And so I'm a big Constitution guy. And I think as I've traveled around the world, we have no better Constitution. We have the best Constitution of anybody in the world. And I just hope it holds, in the going forward.
You mentioned the Estonia guys. 2 stories real quickly. Number one, when you're accepted as a NOM or a national organization member, you can carry your national flag down the aisle. Yep. And I remember the president you're talking about, he was a fairly robust guy, wasn't a small guy. And when he got to the end, he's waving that flag. And Greg, he had tears just rolling down his cheeks.
Yeah.
But that night, the president of the United States, Jaycees, has a hospitality suite. And Greg Thomas invited all these Estonia leaders to come back to the hospitality suite with your MVPs. And they started doing vodka shots. And we did a few of those before you said, whoa. Let's switch over to our national beverage. And we poured out the Jack Daniels.
Yeah.
The toasting lasted a little while, but then they quit. They could knock that vodka out, but they weren't really much on Tennessee sipping whiskey.
No, they sure weren't.
Greg, of all the lessons you observed traveling around with young leaders of the world through JCI, which ones do you think Americans, our young professionals, could best use today and really need to hear?
Well, that's a good question, Bill. I think one of the things would be that know your own weaknesses and then surround yourself with people that are strong in those areas that you're weak. Mm-hmm. And I know that you're probably going to ask a question coming down the road here too about, what makes a good leader. Well, I think it's knowing your own shortcomings. And, I tried to do that not only in JC's, but in my business and everything else. I know my shortcomings. And I think all too often, Americans especially don't do that inner soul search that they need to find out where am I not weak and where do I need to have people to help me. It's not a shame to ask for help.
Yeah. I'm looking over your right shoulder. Is that a picture of Lincoln in the background?
Oh, yeah. I guess I've forgotten he's up there, but yeah, Honest Abe.
That's a man that held the country together under tremendous odds. And that's a guy who knew his shortcomings, but also was a tremendous leader.
Yes.
Greg, you're chairman of the Crow River Boy Scouts, and you're an Eagle Scout yourself. So I didn't really know that about you, but no doubt that you are. And I can see where that certainly paid into your leadership. But what skills do you believe are most critical to nurturing that generation as you're working with young Boy Scouts? What do you think of those leaders that we really need to nurture in that next generation?
Yeah, we need young kids coming through, and we need to mentor them. That was almost 55 years ago, Bill, but I still remember the Scout law, and that's to be trustworthy, loyal, helpful, friendly, courteous, kind, obedient, cheerful, thrifty, and brave, clean, and reverent. And I think if our kids today would kind of go by some of that motto and that law, I think we'd be all much better for it. So a lot of times, I think we pander to our kids too much, and it's not a problem to let them grow up and try to figure out some of these skills. So that's kind of what I took from Scouts. It kind of bled into JC organization, and around the office here, we try to go along those same lines.
Greg, you're on the board of directors of Security State Bank. That's one of the things you got involved in. What skills from your JC career helped you be a good trustee of your local bank board?
It sure wasn't counting money. No, I think it was teamwork. We went through some tough times in 2008, 9, and 10, through the last bad recession that we had. And the bank really needed to call upon leadership skills. And so I think that's a give and take. And I think that's one of the things with the banking industry that even though I'm not a banker myself, that's one of the things that we were able to share with them.
You've always been a big outdoorsman, and I remember being one of your MVPs and one of the few trips that we ever took together. I think we were back in Minnesota, and Butch, what was Butch's last name from Illinois?
Oh, okay. You got me. I can't remember.
I remember, though, that he told us we had been out having a couple of beers that night, and then he said, okay, well, we need to get ready at 5:30. And I said, well, wait a minute. I thought the breakfast was like 9. He said, well, but Greg wants to get in a few holes of golf first. I'm going like, what? And he said, yeah, we're going to play golf in the morning at like 6:30. I'm going, you got to be kidding. We get out there and there's frost still on the ground, and you're out there swinging your clubs, and I'm shivering a little bit, but you've always been a big outdoorsman. You, again, chaired one of the largest outdoor events, the Maple Lake Ice Fishing Derby, 8 years as president of Sportsman Club. Again, what aspects of your JC career probably allows you to do that with your local outdoor activities?
I think anytime you're in an organization like Jaycees, you need organizational skills. You have them, Bill, with not only what you're doing now, but with the crew you had as national president. So you kind of got to know how an organization operates. Don't need to be doing all the work yourself. I also played college football, and football is a team sport, as you well know, and from the South Carolina days. And that's probably
we're not going to talk about Carolina football, okay? We're not going to bring that up.
Well, okay, but you know what? It takes a team. If one person falls apart, then it all goes to heck. The other thing is, if you have a volunteer that's not quite doing their job, I think as a leader, you got to recognize that early. And it's hard to fire a volunteer. I mean, you just can't do it in good shape. And so what you got to do is figure out a way to work around them. Right. And so I think that's one of the things in the ice fishing derby that we've been able to do.
You mentioned the Constitution, and you didn't say it, but you alluded to the tension that we have going on, and the polarization, the political things going back and forth. And that is going on in our country today. What cultural leadership lessons do you think that we could adopt to help bridge that partisan divide that we see in our communities? Because we see it on a local, state, and national level. Mm-hmm.
Well, kind of go back to what Betty always preaches. You got to love people no matter what their political standing is. And for me, that's hard. But she's taught me a lot of lessons there. And, there's an old saying, don't criticize a person until you walked a mile in his moccasins. Yeah. And, I have a hard time, even with my kids, trying to put myself in their shoes and trying to figure out why you think that way. But, it's one of those things that I think just love thy neighbor and try to figure it out. And, you can't agree with everything. And obviously in our country today, it's becoming more polarized. And I don't know where that's going to lead, but we definitely need JCs right now. We need Boy Scouts. We need organizations like 4-H and those kind of things that teach teamwork and allow a person to rub shoulders with other people that maybe don't think the same way you think. And and be able to swallow pride and just say, yeah, okay, you know, we don't agree with each other on everything, but I can still, you know, agree to disagree.
Greg, you can look at our hair and tell we came from a different generation of JCs. You know, that was 30, 40 years ago for us. But what is the one value that you know that the JCs can deliver to young professional leaders today?
Boy, that's a good question. And it's got to be leadership skills by rubbing shoulders with other people. And we have so many people we're churning out in this country today that just don't have those skills. And more importantly, when somebody does have those skills, they stand out. I know you see it in your business, Bill. If you see somebody that's, you know, like a Kelly Wills, I could see him coming up through the Nebraska Jaycees at a very young age because he had those things. And boy, when you got those, you just stand out today in the crowd.
What advice, you know, whether somebody's leading a Kiwanis chapter, a Rotary chapter, or a JC chapter, what advice would you give a young leader of an organization running any civic organization, stepping in their first leadership role?
Yeah, two things. I alluded to it earlier. Surround yourself with people that are strong in the areas you aren't. But the other thing, this is one that it grates me every time I hear it. When you get a leader that talks about their team and he'll say, yeah, my team does this, my team does that. I often wondered what happened to the word our team, you know, spreading out the fact, because when you say my team, a lot of times that alienates people. But when you are encompassing and bring people together, you know, we're all one. And I think that's one of the things young leaders today can aspire to.
You have decades of experience, whether it's running a JC chapter or JC organization nationally, the Sportsman Club that you're involved in today, Scouts. What is the greatest mistake that young leaders make, and perhaps how can they avoid it?
I think it's believing in themselves. You know, you only have yourself to believe in, and you find that belief by taking risks, number one, trying new activities. I'm still trying new activities today, Bill, that I didn't believe, you know, in my 20s and 30s, I was refereeing college and high school basketball and football. And I thought, you know, this is kind of neat, but it's something I did and I'm glad I did it and I'm not doing it anymore. But it's running projects and taking on new endeavors and being involved in organizations. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that question.
You know, you and Betty are now a grandfather to 7. That's a pretty big family.
Yeah.
What leadership values that you hope your grandchildren can inherit from yours and your wife's involvement in the community?
By leading by example, plain and simple. You know, we're setting an example for them, and hopefully they someday will see that that you know there's certain things in life that you do and you don't do. Keeping God at your forefront is a big thing for Betty and I. We hope that that's trickled down in some way, shape, or form for them. But yeah, just going out, working hard. I think all the grandkids that are now out of high school have good paying jobs. Even one of them still living in their parents' basement. But you know, that's just one of the things they do. Work hard, play hard, and love life.
If you could go back, Greg, and whisper in the ear of a 25-year-old Greg Thomas, just starting his political JC career and professional career, what advice would you give him?
Wow. There's a lot of things I would have told myself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. I keep going back to that. And be kind. And build a team. Surround yourself with good people. Those are the principles that I've always lived by, Bill. And I tend to come back to those a lot. And even today, I tend to do that. You know, the longer I live too, I realize the impact that attitude has on life. I think it's more important than the facts that we see. It's more important than the past, than education. I've got a daughter that's just getting her doctorate. And I think the attitude that she has is more important than that. It's more important than money. It's more important than circumstances. And so I think all these things lead into it. And I could probably go on and espouse on a lot of things, but I like attitude as being one of the best things in life.
I want to end this with I'm going to have a little confessional. So we were over at the president's the founder's home, the president's home, and we were doing those shooters, which what were they called? The little things that flipped. You put the Coke in it, Coke and the bourbon in it.
Oh yeah,
whiskey. Yeah. Can't think of the name of it, but anyway, we were going around doing those things, and Rob McCoy stepped in and said, Dennis, I'll take this shot for you. So he did a number of those shots. He wasn't feeling real good that particular night, but Mike Shipe and I played a practical joke. The next day he was really dragging, feeling terrible. We went and took some bourbon and sprinkled it on his pillow back in his place. And the next day he was like, "Oh gosh, guys, all I could do is think and dream and smell because it was in his bed." But I'm going to say it was Mike Shipe's idea. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
It was Shipe. But I want to thank you again. You were my national president, and I really enjoyed being involved as your NVP, traveling around, and then you served as my chairman of the board, and you were always very supportive. And one of the things that we did was we pushed through a dues increase that had to be done, that was wildly unpopular. And you helped me go out and sell that dues increase. But we had to have it. So I want to thank you for all of your support and being a mentor, and for your involvement in the Jaycees over the course of the years. And I wish you and Betty a very, very Merry Christmas.
And to you also, Bill. Keep up the good job. And, looking back on it, nobody could have succeeded me better than you, and I sure appreciate you for doing that. Merry Christmas.
Have a great one. Thank you.
All right.